We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti Podcast. When you're constantly in struggle, constantly in conflict, constantly competitive, you must inevitably wear yourself out, both psychologically and physically. Hello and welcome to episode 293 of Urgency of Change. The Krishnamurti Podcast features carefully selected extracts from Krishnamurti's recorded talks. Each episode highlights his different approaches to universal and timeless themes that affect our everyday lives, the state of the world, and the future of humanity. This episode's theme is competition. Upcoming themes are the past, challenge, and sanity. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust, based at Brockwood Park in the UK, which is also home to the Krishnamurti Retreat Centre. Situated in the beautiful countryside of the South Downs National Park, the Krishnamurti Centre offers retreats individually and in groups. The focus is on inquiry in light of Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit krishnamurticentre.org.uk for more information, including our volunteer programme. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on competition has 4 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's third talk at Rajghat in 1963 and is titled, "Can We Live Happily in This Competitive World?"
How to live happily in this competitive world? Can you? You can only live happily in this competitive world if you yourself are not competitive. Huh? Isn't that so? What do you say? You all look rather bewildered. What do you say? You know, as we were saying the other day, people are violent in the world. There are wars. And a form of violence is competition. It is the very essence of competition, of violence, to compete. To compete for a good position. To compete so that you are somebody in the world. To compete to be the most cleverest boy in the class. All those are indication of violence. And you are trained from childhood to compete. To see that you have better marks than last year. Better marks than your brother or the pupil next to you. So we are competing all the time. And the whole social structure of society is based on competition. And we accept competition as inevitable. I know they say, the big business, all educational people, they say the more you struggle, the more you compete, the better work you produce. You know, I I don't think so. It's being disproved in big companies. That if you are left with some job and not compete, not say I must do this, in order to get more money, but left with a particular job to do it as well as you can because you love that job, you do it far better. Please, this is being done, you follow? In the school, we've talked about it for years, about not having marks. Not having marks at all. But you see, that requires intelligence on the part of the teacher as well as on your part to work. Not for marks, because you want to learn. So to live in this world peacefully, you must be peaceful. And to live in this world which is competitive, you must have no competition. You see, it's a very complex thing, this, you see, because we don't love what we are doing. Love, If you love something, you don't care who is ahead of you, who is below you. You just love what you're doing, and you do it with all your capacity, with all your being, with your heart, with your mind, with your body, everything. But we're not trained to love what we're doing. All that we are trained is to get a good marks, pass a beastly little examination, and get a job. And that's all. Does this disturb you, what I'm saying? Does this disturb you? You know what I mean by disturb? Upset you? Because you're getting marks and you're going to pass an exam this year, next year, keep going, climbing till you become PhD, MA, BSc or whatever it is. And I'm saying the opposite. Does it disturb you? Do tell me. No? No, it doesn't, does it? Quite right. It doesn't disturb you. You're perfectly... I beg your pardon? Huh?
It does.
Oh.
We have to complete it.
Wait. First, wait. Does it disturb you? You say yes, but do the majority of people here feel disturbed? I'm afraid you don't, because you just listen. As you listen to anything else, and you say, well, the school, the whole structure is compete. And what are we to do? Though we feel disturbed, what are we to do? The teacher, the headmaster, the whole setup is that. And you see, they have made experiments, for God's sake, realize that they've gone beyond all this. That a student studies best when he doesn't compete, when he loves something what he's doing. Not when he's all the time keeping an eye on marks, on examination. You see, that way you don't produce intelligence. You can't create intelligence through competition. You can create sharpness, cunning. Become extraordinarily, crooked. Put something across people. So you see, if you are disturbed, one or two of you, then tackle your teachers. Find out why you should have marks. Find out if there is not a different way of studying, learning. getting information, knowledge. There is. They're doing it in different parts of Europe and America. In India they're not. And you might say, well, why should we bother? We have got very good name as a school. So many students pass BAs, MAs and all the rest of it. Why the devil should we be concerned? That's what they will tell you. We are better off than the other schools. But that way you don't produce intelligence. Intelligence comes only when you are free, when you are tremendously alive, not battling, fighting, quarreling, competing, being violent. And I assure you it is intelligence that's going to count. Whether you become a professor or a politician, a crooked politician or a businessman. Intelligence.
The second extract is from the fourth question and answer meeting in Ojai in 1980 and is titled, Why Are We Competitive?
Why do we, each one of us, live the way we are doing? Taking drugs, pot, drinking, smoking, pursuing pleasure and aggression. Why? You understand? Why? Why are we like this? Please, sir, go into it with me. Why are we aggressive? The whole society in which we live, in this society of the West, aggression is one of the most important things. And competition, they both go together. Why? You can see in the animals how aggressive they are in mating in certain seasons. They don't compete, do they? When a lion has killed some zebra, other lions share it. You've seen them in television and so on. But apparently with us, aggression is the most deep-rooted thing. And competition. Why are we like this? Is it the fault of the society? Our education? But the society is what we have made of it. So don't say society, blame the society for this, or some education. But apparently we are deeply aggressive and competitive. And if you are not competitive, if you are not aggressive, in this society you are trodden down, right? You are discarded, you look down upon. Why are we aggressive? Go on, sir, examine it. Is it that this emphasis on individual freedom, you understand? Individual freedom and that freedom demands that he must express himself at any cost. Is that it? Especially in this country, in the West, this sense of freedom, If you have an instinct to do something, if you want to do something, do it. Don't restrain. Don't examine it. It doesn't matter. You must, if you have this feeling, act.
Is there no difference between aggression and competition?
Please, go into it. Don't bother.
They look different to me.
Either you write the questions, I'll answer them, or let me talk a little about this. You can see what aggression does, right? You're aggressive, I'm aggressive for the same job, for the same this, that, the other. And so we are fighting each other all along the way, right? Both psychologically and physically. And we carry on. That's part of a pattern, part of our social education. And to break that pattern, we say we must exercise our will. Right? Which is another aggression. I don't know if you follow this. Right? Right? I'm following this. When I exercise my will is another form of I must. You understand? That's another form of aggression. So can you have any insight, right, into aggression? You've understood my question? Or is it too difficult? You understand my question, sir? That is, I am aggressive. Thank God I'm not. I've never been. I don't want to be. I suppose I'm aggressive. And that's the pattern from childhood. That's the education, the mother, the father, and the society, the boys around me. They're all aggressive. And I see, and I like that. It gives me pleasure. And I accept it, and I also become aggressive. Right? And then as I grow up, somebody shows me the nature of aggression, what it does in society, how competition is destroying human beings. It is not only the speaker is saying this, scientists are beginning to say this. So perhaps you will accept the scientists. So, you explain it very carefully, all the reason, the cause, and the destructive nature of competition, which is to compare. Always comparing. You understand? Now a mind that doesn't compare at all, you understand, is a totally different kind of mind. It has got much more vitality. So one explains all this, and yet we go on being aggressive, competitive, comparing ourselves with somebody, always something much greater, not with the pura, but always something greater. So there is this pattern established, this card, this framework, and in which the mind is caught. And listening to it, you say, I must get out of it. I must do something about it. Which is what? Another form of aggression. You understand? I wonder if you see that. So can we have an insight into aggression? You follow? Not explanations, not the remembrance of all the implications of it and so on, which is constant examination, then coming to a conclusion and acting according to that conclusion. That's not insight. Whereas if you have immediate insight into it, you understand? Then you have broken the whole pattern of aggression. That is, we compare, don't we? Both physically, you have long. I wish you could look. I could look as nice as you do. Or psychologically, we say. So there's constant comparison, which means what? I don't know if you've gone into this. To compare oneself with somebody else, greater, more intelligent, bright, and so on, is to what? Deny what you are and change what you are. I wonder if you understand this. Am I making this clear? I compare myself with you, and I say you're awfully clever, awfully all that. And in that comparison, I say, by Joe, I realize I'm very dull. Right? You following this? But if I have no comparison, am I dull? I begin then to discover the things as is. I wonder if you. So, what shall we do with the way we are living? Sorry to bring it home. What shall we do? You will attend meetings, other forms of other kinds of meetings, discussions, philosophers explaining their philosophy, the latest psychologists, non-Freudian, non-this and non-that, but the latest, he'll explain to you. You understand? We are doing this all the time, from moving from one thing to another. And that's called an open mind. But we never say, look, this is so, I am like this, let me find out. Why am I like this? Why I have wounds, psychological bruises. You understand? Why? Why do I live with them? I don't know if you're following all this. But reading somebody like books of, or attending Krishnamurti's talks, and then quoting back was so, I know all this by heart. I've been at this for 60 years and more. So you don't have to quote to me. But if you don't quote and find out for yourself, you understand, sir? It has much more there is greater energy, more fun, more alive. You become much more alive.
The third extract is from Krishnamurti's third talk in Paris, 1961, and is titled Competition and Conflict.
Conflict surely exists when there is a problem. Problem implies a conflict. And most of us have problems. Problems, economic problems, social problems, problems of relationship, problems of ideas, problems of existence. And those are unresolved. We'll never think through them to the very end and be free of them. But it seems apparently we go on with them day after day, month after month, throughout life, carrying every kind of problem in our minds and heart. And we don't seem to be able to resolve them. And whatever we touch, whatever it is we touch, is reduced to a problem. Love, God, relationship. Just to enjoy life, to be simple. Everything becomes an ugly, disturbing, a problem without an end. I think with that we are more or less familiar. And problem indicates, surely, does it not, a conflict? Conflict of adjustment, conflict of not being able to understand the problem itself, and the conflict of trying to dominate the problem or trying to find an answer to the problem. If I'm attached to a person, it becomes a problem, and I want to know how to unattach myself. If I love, I see in that love there is jealousy, anxiety, fear. And that becomes a problem. Everything becomes a problem and a conflict. And not being able to resolve the problem, we carry it. So there is that problem of trying to resolve an issue and not being capable of it. Then there is competition which arises, which gives another kind of problem. The competition, which is imitation, to be like somebody else. You have the pattern of Jesus, pattern of a hero, a saint, or the pattern of your neighbor, or the pattern which you have established for yourself inwardly, which you try to follow, according to which we try to live, and try to approximate oneself to that pattern. So there is competition which awakens problem. And then there is the problem of fulfillment. Each one of us wants to fulfill in some way or another. We try to fulfill through the family, through the wife, through the husband, through a child. And if one goes a little bit beyond that, you want to fulfill socially. By writing a book, trying to become famous. this constant demand to fulfill, to become something. And where there is this urge to fulfill, to become, to be something, there is always, also is there not, frustration. And with it comes sorrow. And then arises how to avoid sorrow. And yet the demand to fulfill. So we are caught in this circle. That everything we touch becomes a problem. That all our life is based on competition. With all its envy, jealousy, which awakens many problems. And then there is the problem of fulfillment. How to fulfill, how to become something. And we have accepted conflict as inevitable. From childhood we accept conflict. In the school you compete with the brightest boy. And as you grow up you compete with the man above you or with your neighbor. So conflict is accepted. And conflict is considered respectable, necessary for evolution, for growth, for being something, becoming something. That is what we all think. And if there was no conflict, we feel we shall stagnate. So mentally, intellectually, emotionally, we are always sharpening, fighting, everlastingly in conflict with ourselves and with our neighbors and with the world. I think that's a fact. And I don't think we are exaggerating the fact. We all know this conflict. Like a terrific burden on one. Now the problem, I was using the wrong word. The question is, how to be free from conflict, and whether it's at all possible to be free. Whether you see the importance of being free from conflict. Not in order to achieve something else. Per se, for itself to be free. So that the mind is no longer, under any circumstances whatsoever, is in conflict. Wherever it is. Is it possible? You don't know it is. You don't know whether it is or it is not possible. All that we know is that we are in conflict. The pain of it, the anxiety of it, the guilt, the despair, the hopelessness of modern existence, the bitterness of it all. Now, how is one to find out, not verbally, intellectually, or merely emotionally, but actually find out if it is possible? How does one set about it? Because it seems to me, without understanding this conflict, at different levels of consciousness, we cannot possibly be free or possibly understand what truth is. A conflicting mind is a confused mind. The greater the tension in conflict, the greater the productivity of action. You do not know if you have not noticed those writers, those speakers, the so-called intellectual people, how they produce endlessly theories, philosophies. Greater the tension in themselves, the greater the result of their activity. The greater the frustration, and if they have got talent, the more they produce and recognize the world as a great author or a great speaker or a great religious person or whatever it is. Now, if one sees that conflict distorts, conflict perverts, conflict is in essence confusion. If one actually sees that fact, not theoretically, not verbally, but actually, that conflict under any circumstances is destructive to the mind. And I think that is the first thing to see. Not that it is inevitable, that we cannot help it, that social structure is so built that you must have competition, there must be this and that. But actually, in spite of all this, to see that conflict under any circumstances is poison. Then our attitude, our ways of thinking about problem will be entirely different. And I do not think we see that conflict is perverting, destructive. And I think that's the first thing to see. Not intellectually, not verbally, but actually be in contact with that fact. With a conflict between yourself and your wife and husband, with your children, with your neighbor. Conflict with what you consider God. Conflict with ideas. You know how we think and operate all our life. I don't have to go into it in detail. We know that fairly well. From the moment we are born till the moment we die, there is this incessant battle within and without. And we are so afraid if there is no conflict, we'll go to sleep, we'll disintegrate, degenerate, become like vegetable, a cow. So, does one actually see the fact that conflict is not intelligent?
The final extract in this episode is from the first talk in Bombay, 1980, and is titled, "This Terrible Competitive Spirit."
We are asking, our relationship now is based on thought. And therefore, in that relationship there is always division. Naturally, because thought is fragment, limited, and when your relationship is based on thought, must be divisive, separate, and therefore where there is separation, there must be battle. The Muslims and the Hindus, the Jews and the Arabs, right? The communists, the Maoists, the Marxists, the Trotskyites, you understand all this? Where there is division, there must be conflict. And apparently, you are content to live in conflict. Right? You accept it. You say, yes, we know that, but that's inevitable. It's our lot, it's our karma, it's our words, but you love to live in conflict. Right? So what does that indicate? So go into it, for God's sake, look into it. That you accept everything. Right? You accept corruption because you yourself are corrupt. You accept authority. Authority in the sense, not the authority of law, the authority of tradition, the authority of the guru, the authority of the book. You understand what? So that your brain accepts anything that is comfortable, not disturbing, stay put. Right? Haven't you noticed this in your own life? So what happens to a mind that has accepted things as they are? It is a dead mind, right? You shake your head and say yes. That means you are dead. A living corpse. See what we have reduced ourselves? Please go into it for your own sake. So, human beings cannot perpetually live in conflict. Because that is the very essence of degeneration. You understand? When you are constantly in struggle, constantly in conflict, constantly competitive, you must inevitably wear yourself out, both psychologically and physically. You know, in North Canada, the Eskimos, you know, people who live in the North Atlantic, Arctic, they never knew competition. They hunted together. They never said, I'm a better hunter than you are. They hunted together. Though they separately lived separately in their igloos, they came together and they hunted, shared the food they had, and so on. There was never any sense of superior and inferior. Never this terrible competitive spirit. Then the so-called white man came there and introduced racing. You understand all this? The sleigh, which meant who wins first. Then began the competition. Now, all that we are pointing out is that a mind, brain, in constant struggle, constant pain, constant anxiety, becomes a dead mind. You understand? It's not alive. And so, a civilization goes down the drain. You follow what I'm saying? What has happened to you all? Sir, you have had a culture in this country for 3,000 to 4,000 years, right? The so-called Brahmanical culture. Just a minute. I'm using that word Brahmanical, Brahmana, without any attachment to that word. You're following this? I am not anti-Brahman or pro-Brahman. I don't belong to that kind of nonsense. But you have had a culture of 3,000 to 4,000 years, so-called Brahmanic culture, which has left a tremendous imprint. And during the last 50 years or 100 years, it's totally been wiped out. Right? The Brahmins are afraid to call themselves Brahmins. Naturally, they're not Brahmins, but their birth, all the rest of it, they're afraid to call themselves Brahmins because they won't get a job. They're frightened of, and so on, so on. Now, if you examine why this culture is completely gone, why? You will say it is perhaps the Western culture, the technology, the telephone, the railways, the communication, the science, the medicine, all from the West. Nothing of your own, all from the West, swamping you. Right? Your business, your travels, the aeroplane, everything is from the West. Is that the reason why you have this civilization, however good or bad, we're not talking the value of it, has gone? Is that the reason? The West, the Western culture, swamping the Eastern culture. That's rather superficial. Is there a deeper cause? Obviously there is. Which is, we'll go into it now. The speaker has discussed this matter with lots of people, professors, pundits, scholars, politicians, and so on. They are not interested. They say, our culture is going on. We have our traditions. With our traditions are this and that, all that nonsense. What is the root cause of man? Please find outside your life. What is the root cause of man? Man's degeneration? A thing which has grown into such enormous capacity, you understand? The brain has extraordinary capacity. The development of technology, the extraordinary things that they are doing on one side, and degeneration on the other. You can be a marvelous technician, marvelous computer expert, great surgeon, but look at their lives, all the rest of it, you don't have to go into it. So what is the cause of this degeneration of human beings? Now, it is shown much more in this country than elsewhere, but the tendency is to degenerate. Why? You're all silent, are you? Look, sir, people who live by the book, you understand? By the book, which means by words. by theories, by speculations, by concepts, which are all the movement of thought put down in word in books. And when you live on those words and books, you're following what is happening to you? You're following all this? That is when you live on words. The Gita is a word, right? No, I know. Your reactions. So the word, the book, becomes all important. Not your life. You understand? Not your daily life. But words. Look what is happening. So this is so simple. You have used the words, books like the Gita, Upanishads, and whatever, all your sacred, nonsensical books. And when you live on that, your mind is incapable of moving away from the lateral, you understand, lateral, linear movement to something totally different. And that's the major factor of degeneration of man. Depending on knowledge in the book, which is not their knowledge, which is not their experience, which is not their word, but somebody else's. You follow? That means you're all second-hand people. Yes, sir, don't. It's really frightfully serious and tragic. And if you want to create a new world, a new civilization, a new culture, you have to change the whole way of living, thinking, feeling. But you're not prepared for that. You don't want that. So see the difficulty when you are listening to all this, which you know to be true, right? Which you know to be factual, but you will do nothing about it because you are afraid. You might lose your position. What will your wife say? And so on, so on, so on. You'll find a lot of excuses and say, I'm weak, but it's all right, carry on. So your life becomes an ugly affair. And no God, no outside agency, no social reform, no politician, no scientist, nothing will change you except you look at yourself. Look at yourself as you are, not what you think you should be. That's just non-fact. The fact is what you are. Your daily anxiety, fear, all the rest of it. That's what you are. To say, I must be non-violent is non-fact. You understand? That's just an idea. The fact is you're violent. And merely escaping to non-violence is just ridiculous. It has no meaning. So, we began the talk by asking if we can think together. Right? Are we thinking together? Or you're merely listening to a lot of words, and those words have their meaning, and you know the content of that meaning, which means your life, your daily, monotonous, boring, lonely, anxious life, full of tears. And you will create the society which you want, which it is now. You understand, sirs, how serious your responsibility is as human beings, not as an individual, as a human being living on this earth, which is our earth, not the Indian earth and the Muslim earth. It's our earth. And we have created a monstrous, immoral society. And to bring about a change in that society, no outside agency, no system, no new Marxism, new ideas are going to change the society. You have to change. Right? And that change can only begin, that revolution, psychological revolution can only begin very near, which is you. To go very far, you must begin very near. Right, sirs? Very near is you. So, as we're going to talk together next Saturday and Sunday and so on, please bear in mind that we are taking an immense journey into ourselves. Right? Ourselves being the rest of humanity. When you inquire into yourself, you are not selfish. It is not a selfish endeavor. It's an endeavor into the vast human struggle, human pain, human anxiety, with their sorrows, love and pleasure and all that. So you can only take that journey if you are serious, not merely intellectual. That's nothing. But if you put your heart, your mind, your whole being into this, then we can do something together.